Samuel chapter 9, First Samuel chapter 9. And we're going to talk a little bit about searching versus seeking. Searching versus seeking. Searching versus seeking. I want to um, just kind of talk a little bit about this text. And it's a very familiar text. It's a lot that was actually happening in this particular text of scripture that we're about to read. And before we get into it, I want to share. I just want to be. I guess I get a little transparent with myself and my life as we go into this text. It's kind of tied in. I was around maybe mm, 13, 14 years old. And I remember being in my grandmother's daycare, a red schoolhouse that we still own back in Florida. And I remember playing with my cousins, and we were just kind of having fun. And when you have a family-owned business, you have family members that are there. You have family members that are present, family members that are around, and sometimes we get caught in conversations or we get asked questions and things just sporadically happen. So this particular moment in my life, I remember being around 12, I would say probably about 12, 13 years old. And my aunt came to me and she asked a question. She says, "Have you talked to your dad lately?" And I was like, "Yeah." But I looked at her kind of weird, like, you know, why would you ask me that? Because you never asked me if I ever talked to my dad. So the first time she asked me, I didn't think anything of it. Um, and then I think it was probably the second day that I saw her and she asked me again. But then she says, I said, "Yeah, I talked to my dad. He just left out of Chicago and he'll probably be down here in about a week or two." "No, I'm not talking about him." And she said, "Never mind." In that moment, my whole being was a little shook. Why? Because I was given some information that I never heard before, right? So you all know what it's like to have family members around and people get to talking and saying things and talking and saying things and somebody say the wrong or right thing and we don't know where or whom or how the information got out. All I know is I'm 12, 13 years old, and my aunt tells me or asks me if I talked to my dad. And when I said I did, she says, "No, not him." And then she stopped and said, "Never mind." So when I left that conversation or when she left my presence, I was confused. I was confused because I didn't know what she was talking about. And I had no premise as to where she was going with her question. So I make a long story short, I would later find out after talking to my mother that who I thought was my dad really wasn't. And who is my dad, I kind of knew. I kind of knew him, but really didn't know him and began to know him. And later on, I would get to know certain things, and as things start to progress, I would get to know who he was. But he passed away when I was probably 16, and when that happened to me, my whole life really was altered and it was changed because from the second that I found out about him through that weird conversation that I had with my aunt to the moment that it was expressed to me who he really was from my mother, and from the time of his until the time of his departure, there was a lot of looming questions that I had as a person. And sometimes, and I know this may not apply to you, Some of you all may have never been in a situation that had you scratching your head for any reason or searching for answers, right? Sometimes we get to a place in our life where we're looking for something, and the something that we're looking for may not even be there. Um, Sometimes it's just us wanting to really understand, well, what is this all about? Um, some of us in life, we go through ordeals, we go through situations that have us going from this thing to that thing, from this place to that place, from this job to that job, from whatever to whatever, because we're searching for something. We're searching, we're looking for something. And let me tell you this, most times what you're searching for, it's not there. Most times what you're searching for is really not there. So I had this really harsh reality because life really began to happen after I turned 16 and after all that stuff was going on and I'm I'm getting ready to go to college and all these other different things in life. We find ourselves really trying to find ourselves, especially at that age. But in life in general, sometimes we find ourselves searching for things and looking for things and trying to get ourselves in position to find whatever the thing is that we are actually looking or searching for, to later find out that I was actually on a wild goose hunt chase. I'm kind of chasing myself. I'm kind of chasing some of the things that I may not even be there. Um, and at times it has us questioning ourselves, like, God, why me? So all this, and I'm sharing this story with you in this transparent moment to show how we are all human, and at times we all have questions about things that sometimes we don't have the answer to. There are things that we're looking for. There are things that we're trying to do. There are certain businesses that we're trying to establish. There is this plan that or the thing or whatever it is that's in your mind and your heart to do, and it's just not happening the way you want it to happen. And what I've come to find out is that sometimes we have to realize that searching for something is different than seeking for something. And to be more specific, searching sometimes lead us into seeking God. Searching versus seeking God. Searching versus seeking God's way. Searching versus seeking God's divine will. Searching myself, my flesh, my mind, me, the essence of me versus God, versus his will, versus his plan, versus his purpose, versus his way. So I want to talk just a little bit tonight from First Samuel chapter 9, because I think this really exploits that even more, because something happened in this verse of scripture, and I think it's really important for us to see it real time. So if somebody has 1 Samuel chapter 9, if you can start at verse 2. You can start at verse 1 if you want to, but we can go start from verse 2. Not everybody at once. Don't matter.
I got New Living Translation.
Well, somebody else. Anybody have that? 1 Samuel chapter 9.
Now there was a man, y'all can y'all hear me? Barely.
Yes.
Now there was a man of Benjamin whose name was Kish, the son of Abiel, the son of Zerah, the son of Becharath.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't know I was gonna do all these names here when I
That's all right.
signed up
That's
for
all
this
right.
job.
That's all right. Do the best you can. You're doing all right. Doing all right.
The son of Aphiah, a Benjaminite, a mighty man of power. And he had a son whose name was Saul, a choice young man and a goodly. And there was not among the children of Israel a goodlier, okay, person than he. From his shoulders and upward, he was higher than any other people.
Mm-hmm.
And the asses of Kish, Saul's fathers, were lost. And Kish said to Saul, his son, take now one of the servants with thee and arise and go seek the asses.
Mm-hmm.
And he passed through Mount Ephraim and passed through the land of Shalisha, but they found them not. Then they passed through the land of Shalim, and there they were not. And he passed through the land of Benjaminites, but they found them not.
Mm-hmm.
And when they were come to the land of Zuk, Saul said to his servant that was with him, come and let us return, lest my father leave caring for the asses and take thought for us.
Is that
And he
is
said,
that verse 5?
uh-huh.
Okay, we'll stop there. Thank you. Thank you, Sister Johnny, for reading that. So from verses 3 through 5, you all notice that there are certain characters here. There was Kish, who was Saul's father, and then there was Saul, who is actually Kish's son. And there was something that was first of all, they talked about and described Saul. They talked about how handsome he was and how he was taller than anyone else that was around him anywhere in Israel. They couldn't find anybody taller and as handsome as Saul was. So in verse 3, it talks about Kish, Saul's father, the donkeys that belonged to his fathers, that they were lost. He says, take one of your servants and go. And this is Kish, Saul's father, telling him this. He says, take one of the servants with you and go look for the donkeys, because they were lost. He didn't know where they were. So he told them, he told Saul, take one of the servants, go find the donkeys. And they did exactly what he said. And they would talk about how they went through all these districts and all these towns and all these territories, and they didn't find them. They didn't find the donkeys. Saul said to the servant who was with him in verse number 5, he says, let's go back, or my father will stop thinking about the donkeys and start worrying about us. Okay? So I want to show you the posture here in verses 3 through 5. The posture of Saul when he was actually going to do what his father asked him to do, and that was go look for the donkeys. They were searching. They were searching. They were searching for his father's donkeys. Now, here's where I want to flip the switch, because immediately in verses 6 through 8, something unique happens. And this is where I kind of want to, if you're taking notes, and if you have your notepad with you, I want you to draw some points, because in order for us to understand what our divine assignment is, in order for us to get to a place where we are no longer searching, but rather seeking, we're rather seeking and not searching. We have to get to a place of wanting to figure out, well, what is it that or who is it that is in my camp? And here's where I'm going with this. Verse number 6 says, but the servant replied, the servant, I want y'all to see who's talking. The servant replied, look, in this town, there is a man of God, and he is highly respected, and everything he says comes what? True. And then he said, let's go there, right? Because he's going to tell us what way to take. Verse number 7 says, Saul said to his servants, if we go, what can we give the man? All right. What can we give the man? Because see, they understand what it is to be before someone who's godly, someone who's highly respected, and so on and so forth. And he knows that, look, I can't just go there empty-handed. Saul realizes this. But I want you to see the kind of company Saul has with him. See, verses 3 through 5, they were searching. They were in a place of searching for something. They were looking for something. But here in verse 6, something happened, something changed. Says the servant who was with Saul says, there's a man of God and he's highly respected. We need to go find him because he's going to be able to tell us what it's going to take so you can find your father's donkeys. And then verse 7, Saul said to his servants, we don't have nothing to give them. I don't have a gift. Our food is gone. I don't have a gift to give the man of God. What do we have? Watch this. Verse number 8, the servant answered him. Look, he said, I have a quarter of a shekel of silver, and I'll give it to the man of God so that he can tell us what way we need to take. Notice what happened from verses 3 through 5 versus what happened in verses 6 through 8. Verses 3 through 5, they were in Saul and his servant. They were in their own minds. They were in their own accord. They were doing something that we all do. We're searching for stuff. We looking for something. We're just following instructions. We doing what we think we know what to do. Not outside of ourselves, but just who we are by human nature. We're searching. We're looking for something. But notice the posture that was taken in verses 6 through 8. The servant says, well, hold on. We've looked everywhere. We can't find them. But the servant says, well, look, in this town where we are right now, there's a man that I know who is godly and he's highly respected. Now they went from searching for something to seeking someone. They went from searching for something to seeking someone. And not only someone, but a godly someone. A man who was respected. And look at what happened. When they did this, and this is why, and here's my first point. Make sure you have the right company in your circle. Make sure you have the right company in your circle. Why am I saying this? Because look at what the servant said to Saul. If the servant was vain, if the servant was all about himself, if the servant really did not have inclination that something greater can actually come out of this situation, he would have probably stayed in the state of mind Saul was in. And that was just looking for the donkey. That was just looking for the donkey. But the servant knew something about where he was, that he knew that, look, what we're trying to find, we probably won't, but I know who to seek that'll help us find. Do y'all see that? In verse number 6, he pointed Saul in the direction where he started to seek someone that will help us find what it is that we actually needed. And he knew what to do. The servant, Saul knew I didn't have a gift to give this man of God. I didn't have anything prepared. I didn't have a gift. I didn't have food. I didn't have anything to bring before him. But the servant did. That's why it's good for us to be obedient. The Bible tells us to honor our mothers and fathers, that our what? Our days may be long upon the land. You see, when he honored what his father did, look at what happened to Saul, even though he didn't know what was getting ready to happen. He took his servant like his father instructed him to, and the servant actually knew something that Saul didn't. So number one, the first point, if you're taking notes, be careful of the company that you have with you. Make sure that the company that you keep understands the God that you serve and understands what it is to be on a search for something, but I can actually seek someone else or seek a God or seek the divine for something higher that will give us everything that we need. So where I was in a posture of searching, now I'm in the posture of seeking. Why? Because of who I have in my company. Some of us are still in search mode because we have the wrong company that won't direct us to seek mode, to seeking God, to seeking the Lord while he may be found, to calling upon him while he's yet near, because we're still in search mode. Verses 3, and for those that are just joining us, we're in 1 Samuel chapter 9. 1 Samuel chapter 9. Verses 3 through 5, Saul was in search mode. Him and his servant, they were in search mode. But in verses 6 through 8, immediately they went to seek God mode. Watch what happens when we switch from searching flesh mode to seeking God mode. Watch what happens. Verse number 11 through 13. I'm not going to read it all, but I'm just going to paraphrase through this. Verses 11 through 13. They made up in their mind that in verse 10, he says, good, Saul said to the servant, we're going to go. We're going to set out to look for the man of God. So verse number 11 says, as they were going up the hill to the town, they met some young women coming to draw water. And they asked, is the seer here? In other words, is the prophet here? And he said, they answered, he's ahead of you. Hurry now, because he's coming into town, and they have to have a sacrifice. The people have a sacrifice at the high place as they enter to town or before they even eat. So if you get to him first, you're going to be ahead of the game. Look at what's happening, y'all. Watch the order. As you seek God for answers, answers come along the way. As you seek God, the divine, because see, we're not in search mode anymore. We're not searching for the donkey. Notice they're not searching for the donkey anymore. Now they're seeking after the prophet, the man of God. The whole posture has changed. Some of us are in search mode. Oh, that job ain't come through for me. Oh, this relationship hasn't come through for me. Oh, this opportunity has not come through for me yet. Well, I guess I'm going to search for something else. That's the problem. We're in search mode. We're in search mode, and God is trying to get us to pivot to seek God mode. Because that's what Saul and his servant and the servant did in verses 6 through 8. The servant said, look, I know a man. I know this godly man. I know this man who's highly respected. And everything this guy says, it comes true. It happens. Because he understood what it was to leave search mode and go into seek mode. Seek God. And here, and we see it in verses 11 through 13. When we change our mode from search to seek, our answers will start being unfolded. Watch this. As they were going to seek the man of God, what happened? They saw these women going to the well, and they said, oh yeah, he's that way. Hurry up, he's on his way. He just got into town today. They giving them information. They're downloading information that they needed real time. Watch how when we start seeking for God, answers start showing up immediately. When we're not even asking for the answers, they show up. Here we go, verse 14. Here's another note if you want to take it. Where you are going is a high place. Some of us have been looking for something, and because we have been in search mode, you have not been able to find it because you've been in your mode. You've been in your mind. You've been in your heart. And God has a different plan for you. And his plan is higher than yours. His plan is not in the place that you're in. Verse number 14 says they went up to the town. And as they were entering in it, hear me in the spirit, you all. There was Samuel, who was the prophet, coming toward them on his way up to the high place. I want to say this to you all in this moment. Some of y'all been searching for things, and we're searching for stuff, and we're searching for stuff that's not even there. And we're not seeking for God. We're not seeking his face. We're not seeking for his answers. And I'm telling you, even as you go along the way and you change your posture from searching to seeking, he's waiting to reveal himself to you. Because there are going to be people along the way saying, oh yeah, it's that way. He always sends nuggets. He always sends a sign. He always sends people to point us when we're going in the direction we need to go. There's going to always be a sign to lead us where we need to go. It's right here in the text. They saw these women at the well and they told, oh yeah, the prophet, he's that way. Keep going. You'll run into him. And verse number 14, not only did they meet him and he was coming toward them, but they were in a high place. And I'm here to tell you that where you are right now is not where God wants you to be. Because you're in search mode. And God is trying to get us into seek mode. Seeking God in his divine, infinite wisdom. So that where we are, we can find him. In our situations, in our mess, all we need to do is just to turn our head, to turn our minds, to pivot our thoughts and go from search mode to seek God mode. So here we are, verse number 14. They're getting ready to go into a high place. And I'm telling you today that everything that you've been thinking about has been in a low place because God is trying to get you in a high place. Here's another note, and I'm going to skip down to verse number 20. The very thing that you saw as a problem that you didn't have the answer for, and you still don't have the answer for, when you start to seek God, your answer is in his will. Verse number 20. Verse number 20 says, and let me go back to verse number 17. It says, or 16, about this time tomorrow, I'll send you a man from the land of Benjamin. This is what God was saying to Samuel. God had already spoke to Samuel about who he was going to meet. Samuel already knew he was going to meet Saul. God had showed it to him. So in verse number 19, I am the seer, Samuel replied, because Saul was approaching him. Says, would you please tell me where the seer house is? He didn't even know that he was talking to the seer. So in verse number 19, Samuel revealed himself. I am he. And then this is what Samuel says to him. Go up ahead of me to the high place. For today you are to eat with me. And in the morning I will send you on your way. and I will tell you all that is in your heart. And here it is in verse number 20. As for the donkeys you lost 3 days ago, don't worry about them. They've already been found. And to whom is all the desire of Israel turned, if not to you and your whole family line? Everything that Saul needed and was looking for in verse 20 was revealed through the prophet. He was on assignment. And his only assignment from his father was to find his donkeys. But look where the answer came from. It came through a prophet. It came through a seer. Until we pivot, until we position, until we posture ourselves from being in search mode to seek mode, it's going to be hard to hear from God. Samuel made up in his mind, I want to hear from God. He postured himself when he was with the servant, made a decision. It's time for me to hear from God. If this man knows and he sees and he can prophesy and he can tell me about myself, let's go. And watch this. This is verse number 20. So his answer, his answer, the very thing that he was looking for, it's already been done. The very thing that you're worrying about, it's already done. The problem is that you're still in your search mode. You're still trying to search for answers. I'm still trying to figure this thing out. And God is saying in this moment, stop trying to search and figure it out, but seek me. I have all the answers. Seek my face. Seek my divine will. Seek my divine ways. Verse number 22. Not only will you go up into the high place, not only will your dilemmas go away, but you're going to be seated at the head of the table. Verse number 22, I'm still in the text. Then Samuel brought Saul and his servants into the hall and seated them where? At the head of those who were invited, about 30 in number. Some of us don't understand our assignment because we're looking at our situation. Some of us don't understand our assignment because we're stuck in the place that we're in, searching. Until we decide to seek God, seek his ways, seek his divine wisdom, our life will start to change. Not only did the dilemma go away, not only are they in a high place, not only did the answers come in verse number 4, in verse number 14, verses 11 through 13, but here he is, verse number 22, he's seated at the head of the table. And people trying to figure out, how does she get up? How did he get up in this profession, in this field, and he's at the head? Saul didn't even realize at this moment he was being groomed to become king. And then in verse number 23, you won't even eat what everybody else eats. Verse number 23 says, Samuel said to the cook, bring the piece of meat that I gave you, the one I told you to lay aside. What God has for you has been untainted, has not been touched, is set aside. It's been cooked to perfection just for you. Stop comparing yourself. Stop making analogies about who you are compared to everybody else. Stop saying, well, this is what this person got and I ain't got mine yet, because you're still searching. You haven't turned your mind over to seek God mode, like Saul and the servant did, verses 6 through 8. He didn't stop there with just the meat. In verse number 25, he says, you will be communicated above everybody else in a private place. In other words, God will not only bring you to the head of the table, but when he's trying to give you directions, he's going to isolate you. He's going to take you away from everybody, and what you need to hear, you will hear it. And it's going to be above everybody that was in the room. There were 30 people that were in that room. And in verse number 20, I think it's verse number 25, what happened? After they came from the high place of the town, Samuel talked with Saul where? On the roof of his house. Verse number 26 says they rose about daybreak, and Samuel called to Saul on the roof, get ready and I will send you on your way. God wants to isolate you to the point that not only will you eat good, not only will there be stuff set aside for you, not only will your opportunity be unique for you, because you switch your mindset from search mode to seek mode, but he's going to isolate you to the point that you're going to be communicated to privately above everything else. If he got to take you on a roof of a house to get his word to you, he will take you to the roof of the house so that God can download his word to you. Here's my last point. I could keep going. In the very next chapter, chapter number 10 in 1 Samuel, 1 Samuel chapter 9. If you go to chapter number 10, the very first verse of chapter number 10, it talks about something that was done. Samuel took a flask of olive oil and poured it on Saul's head and kissed him, saying, has not the Lord anointed you ruler over his inheritance? In other words, where you're going, you're anointed for. Where you're going, you're anointed for. When you posture yourself to seek mode, not search mode, but seek mode. They stopped searching for the donkey in verse number 5. They start seeking after the man of God in verse number 6. In chapter 9. Until they got to the place that not only was he talked to, was he given directions, he was sat at the head of the table, he was given the best meat that was laid aside just for him. In verse number 10, he was anointed. He was anointed. I'm done. I just want to encourage somebody today, wherever you are, whatever you're searching for, whatever it is that you're looking for, whatever it is that you've been baffled about, whatever it is that you just, you can't seem to figure it out, God is saying in this moment, stop, turn, and start seeking me. It wasn't until Saul and the servant stopped searching for the donkey and started seeking for God that Saul's whole life changed. And I'm here to tell you that as you are seeking God, as you are seeking his face, as you are seeking after his will, answers, signs, directions, food, opportunities, it's all in the text. They just start popping up out of nowhere because they changed their posture. They went from search mode to seek God mode. I know I'm not talking to myself today. I'm not looking for, thank you, Carolyn. I'm glad this is resonating with somebody. But I don't care where you are in your life. There is something that you are in need of, and you've been searching long enough. And in this Bible study today, I want to encourage you. Stop searching and start seeking God. Not that seeking we was taught back in the day. Get on the altar and just seek. Call Jesus. I ain't talking about that seeking. Because I know people who've called him, they still don't have him. They've been calling him and calling him. He's still there. He's waiting on them. But this seeking, it's an inner thing. It's a mind thing. It's a heart posture thing. Where we searching for stuff that really doesn't matter. Not that Saul's father Kish didn't matter to him and being obedient to his father didn't matter. But watch this. When you got the right people in your circle, they're going to direct you to do the right thing. And that's to seek God. Like the servant did with him. He started seeking God. He started seeking God, and I can keep going to the point where he was prophesying. That Saul was prophesying. So I want to encourage you all, wherever you are, whatever it is you're going through. And some of us, we've been through some stuff and we still are in search mode. Some of us have had things done to us and we're still in search mode. We haven't flipped the switch to seeking God mode because we're still searching for answers. We're still searching. It's almost like me when I told the story about me as a little boy trying to search for answers about my father and all the information that I got in a moment and being confused. I could have stayed there. But at some point, we got to turn that search switch off and get into seek his face, seeking God's wisdom, seeking God's way, seeking after a prophet that can tell us what God already told him about us, just as he did Saul in this text. Because I'm sure when Saul heard him say that, I can almost see his face. How did he know that I was looking for those donkeys? Mm-hmm. So I want to encourage you all, whether it's a job, relationship, children, education, business, I don't care what it is. Sometimes we start searching for answers, we lose ourselves because we're searching, but we're not seeking God for answers. I pray that what we have just read and what we've just gone over in 1 Samuel chapter 9 was something that you can take with you, was something that you can carry with you, something that you can draw from and that you can grow from.